I never thought I'd see flashing lights coming down my gravel driveway over a cup of coffee. But that's how that morning started. Red and blue lights flickering off my cedar barn. The smell of hay and diesel in the air. And me standing there wondering what in the world I'd done wrong. "Sir, are you the homeowner?" the deputy asked as he stepped out of the cruiser. "Been one for 25 years, I said, calm but confused. "Why?" He looked down at his notepad. "We got a call from a woman named Karen Miller. Says you're trespassing." I laughed. Trespassing? On my own ranch? That's when it hit me. The HOA president herself had finally lost it. The Millers moved in 3 years ago, right after the county forced our ranch community into the new Lakeside HOA. None of us old-timers wanted it. The county said it would modernize the area. I called it control, dressed up as improvement. Karen, a retired realtor with too much time and too little kindness, crowned herself queen. At first it was harmless. Emails about mailbox colors and approved fence stains. Then came warnings for tractors left overnight or my American flag being too large for visual harmony. She'd gotten personal, complaining about my wife's garden being unsightly, and ordering me to remove my father's barn for violating architectural consistency. That barn wasn't just lumber. My father built it in 1972, the same year I was born. Every nail still holds his fingerprints. When he died, I promised I'd protect that place exactly as he left it. So yeah, this was personal. The deputies were polite, embarrassed even. Once I showed them the deed one side and said, "Sir, sorry for the trouble. We'll clear this up." Watched them drive back toward Karen's pristine white house, plastic plants, spotless driveway, not a leaf out of place. I knew she was standing behind those blinds, watching. So I tipped my coffee mug toward her in a little salute. That was the moment I decided enough was enough. That afternoon I called a meeting at the community center. Every homeowner within HOA lines got the same notice: discussion on board authority and property rights. Karen tried to cancel it. Said I lacked authorization. But by then, half the town had had enough of her little kingdom. When she walked in that night, heels sharp, folder in hand, the tension was thick. I stood up and said, "Folks, we've got a problem. We're letting a handful of people tell lifelong landowners how to live on property we've built, paid for, and raised families on." Someone clapped. Another muttered, "About time." Karen's face went red. "You don't have the authority to call this meeting," she snapped. "Maybe not yet," I said. "But let's talk about who does." For months, she'd bragged about her powerful HOA board. She didn't know I'd been studying every line of the bylaws, learning how that whole machine worked. Turned out, the HOA wasn't even owned by residents yet. It was still under developer control. And the developer? He was ready to sell out, so I made a few calls. Weeks earlier, I quietly bought the remaining shares through a holding company. On paper, the board Karen ran now reported to me that night. I let her finish her little speech before setting a folder on the table. "Karen," I said evenly, "you called 911 on the man who owns the HOA board you serve on." Silence filled the room. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She tried to laugh it off. "That's procedural nonsense." I slid the documents toward her. "Effective last Friday, Lakeside Development transferred ownership to my company. That means the board and all authority now fall under me." Someone in the back whistled. Karen's hands trembled. "You can't do that. It's illegal." "It's perfectly legal," I said. "Maybe next time. Call your lawyer before you call 911. Neighbors lingered after the meeting. Some shook my hand. Others just looked relieved. Old Tom Daniels clapped me on the shoulder. Been waiting years for someone to put her in her place. I smiled but didn't celebrate. I didn't want to humiliate her, I just wanted peace again. The kind where you can drink coffee without flashing lights in your driveway. That night, the wind moved through the pines, and the flag on my porch rattled softly. Dad used to say, land isn't something you own, it's something you protect. Karen had crossed a line. But she'd also reminded me why that promise mattered. I looked out at the barn, glowing under the moonlight, and whispered, "I kept it safe, Dad." Deep down, I knew this wasn't over. And sure enough, the next morning, she showed up at my gate with a clipboard and a news crew. By sunrise, my driveway was lined with strangers. Karen Miller, 3 bored cronies, and a TV crew setting up tripods like it was breaking news. I stepped out, coffee in hand. "Morning, Karen." Didn't know Channel 8 covered neighborhood gossip. She ignored me. "This is the homeowner I told you about. He's been defying HOA rules and threatening board members." The reporter looked uncomfortable. I just took another sip. When she finally paused, I pointed to my private property sign. "You might want to step off the land you say I don't own." Even the cameraman smirked. Within an hour, the clip hit social media. Karen posted it calling me a hostile resident. But context is a funny thing. The full video spread and people saw what really happened. That's his land. "Karen's lost it. We need new leadership." By noon, she deleted it too late. Her crown had slipped. That night, a young couple knocked on my door. Jake and Emma Lawson. "Thank you," Emma said. "Everyone's been scared to say anything," Jake added. "She finds people for bird feeders, man." We laughed, and for the first time, it felt like the neighborhood was waking up. But Karen wasn't done. 2 days later, a certified notice of violation arrived. Apparently, my barn lighting broke her luminescence standards. My wife just shook her head. "She's trying to bait you," smiled. "Then let's take the bait." I drove straight to the HOA office, a small suite above a nail salon. When I walked in, her assistant froze. Karen stepped out, annoyed. "You can't just barge in here." I placed her letter on the desk. "This yours?" "Yes. Your lighting violates code for B." "It's interesting," I said, sliding over another paper. "According to Section 7.3, you need developer approval for citations." Her eyes flickered. "You rewrote the bylaws?" "No," I said. "The board you serve on did." Her face drained of color. By nightfall, word spread like wildfire. The bylaws had changed. I'd opened every record, every budget, every vote to the public. Homeowners flooded my inbox. Didn't know we were paying for double landscaping? Finally, transparency. How do we remove her? A few days later, Karen called an emergency board meeting. Half the neighborhood showed up. She started her speech, "Friends." Someone spreading misinformation like calling 911 on a homeowner. Someone shouted. Laughter rippled through the crowd. "Karen," I said, standing, "you don't get to threaten people anymore. The board serves the community, not itself. You think you can just take over?" I shrugged. Already did. Over the next week, her allies resigned. The mailbox overflowed with petitions demanding her removal. The neighborhood finally breathed again. No fines, no fear. Kids played in driveways. Neighbors waved again. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like home. Still, her silence bothered me. Then she resurfaced on TV again, claiming I'd harassed her and abused power. I shook my head. What she didn't know was that I had every record, every check she'd written to herself. This time, the fight would end in court. By morning, the lawsuit was everywhere. Local HOA president sues developer who exposed her mismanagement. But the comments told the real story. Isn't he the guy she called 911 on? She's unbelievable. My attorney, Paul Riley, old ranch buddy, skimmed the file. Defamation. Abuse of authority. She's reaching. She's desperate, I said. Then let's pull the records. He grinned. We did, and what we found sealed her fate. Years of consulting fees, all paid to her own LLC, Paul said. She's cooked. The courtroom was packed. Her lawyer painted me as a vindictive developer. Paul stayed calm. Your Honor, we have proof of fund misuse, falsified violations, and a false 911 report. He clicked a remote. The big screen lit up with emails, bank transfers, signatures. Karen froze. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Miller, is this your signature? She stuttered. That's reimbursement for gas receipts from 4 years ago? Paul asked. Silence. Outside. The flag on the courthouse lawn flapped in the wind, steady and proud. When the ruling came, it was quiet. Case dismissed. Mrs. Miller, you are removed from the HOA board pending investigation. No cheers. No victory music? Just relief. As we walked down the courthouse steps, a reporter asked, "What happens to the HOA now?" I said, "We go back to being neighbors." Weeks later, peace returned. No flashing lights, no threats, just sunrise over the pasture. The way it used to be, we rebuilt the HOA together, fewer rules, more respect. Karen sold her house and left town. Funny how bullies call it toxic when people stop fearing them now. Most evenings, I sit on that same porch with my coffee, the flag swaying steady in the wind. Sometimes neighbors stop by and we laugh about how wild it all got. Other times I just sit there alone, listening to the quiet, the sound of freedom earned. Dad was right. Land isn't something you own. It's something you protect. Sometimes standing up for what's right doesn't make you popular. It just makes you free. Have you ever faced an HOA like this? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every one. If you believe some fights are worth having, hit subscribe. And let's stand up together.